This 1972 Z28 Camaro is representative of the car I dreamed of in college, bought soon thereafter, replicated when Camaro Z28 came back for 1978, and then completely lost track of until I found this one. We previously did a video on this car, but this is the new and enhanced, and we've learned a lot more since then video. So enjoy. In 1970, the Camaro was all new. It was an all new, much more European, much more flowing lines, all of a piece, really sharp shape. I kind of thought the 67, 8, and 9, though many people love them, I thought they were just kind of derivative of the first generation Mustang. The 70 Camaro, clean sheet of paper, beautiful, beautiful design. My favorite General Motors design ever. For 1970, they were thinly disguised versions of the cars that Chevrolet raced in the Trans Am. The street car had the all-new 350 cubic inch LT1 V8, 11-to-1 compression, high dome pistons, solid lifters, big Holley carburetor on a Winters aluminum manifold, big steam, loads of torque, great engine. Then for 1971, GM dictated that the high compression engines were out, so the same LT1 got flat top pistons and a 9-to-1 compression. And that's what I bought, was a 1971 Z28 Camaro that I saw on a used car lot in State Street, Springfield, Mass. in March of 1973. It just stopped me right in my tracks. It was Mulsanne blue like this one, with white stripes, and that one had a white vinyl top. Boy, I had to have it. The only thing I didn't have was $3,200. I had about $800, and I convinced a friendly banker, Bob Butler, down at Charter Oak Savings in West Hartford, to loan me $2,400 for 24 months at I forget how much of an interest rate, but then I had the Z28 of my dreams. What was so great about this car? Well, the LT1 was also used in the two-seat Chevy Corvette, a car that was a little bit lighter, but not much, had 2 less seats, had no trunk to speak of, and had enormous insurance rates compared to what I told my agent was just a small block Camaro. Yeah, a small block Camaro with 335 horsepower, gobs of torque, and most importantly, a positive traction rear end and the F41 handling suspension that was standard on all Z28s. Now, for 1972, the engine was exactly the same, but GM was required by the government to give net horsepower ratings instead of gross. Net means the horsepower the engine put out with all of the accessories, starter, alternator, things like that, installed instead of just a free revving engine by itself, which was 335 horsepower. The 72 was rated at about 250, and everybody thought, wow, the Camaro's really gone downhill. But no, it was exactly the same engine. And due to a GM late in the year labor strike, only 2,500 of these were made for 1972, making it the rarest Z28 Camaro, with the exception of the late in 1967 very first ones. So the 71 that I bought, I drove as my daily driver and only car through several road salt encrusted New England winters, which did not do the car any good. But it was just a very faithful daily driver and occasional rally or autocross car. Yeah, it went through a set of tires or two, Goodyear Polyglass GTs, and then BF Goodrich Radial TA 50s when those first came out. And I put a new Hayes clutch in it because I had to, and an idler arm, and refreshed the steering. But other than that, boy, the car was bulletproof and ran beautifully. 4-speed M21 Muncie, 373 positive traction rear end, and sure, on the Mass Turnpike, you'd be turning 3,300 RPM and gulping gas at about 12 miles to the gallon, but wow, what a performance car. Well, in 1978, the Camaro, or 77, the Z28 came back after a 2-year hiatus, and learning that it was going to get all body color bumpers for 78, I waited and ordered one as close to my 71 as it could be. Bright blue metallic, blue interior, still an M21 4-speed and a 373 posi rear. However, it didn't have the power of the earlier car. It did, however, have air conditioning and power windows. I mean, after all, you know, if it's going to be your daily driver, why not? Well, the 71 I kept as an occasional autocross and fun car. And then when I moved to Florida in 78, the end of 78, the Z28 stayed in Connecticut. Stafford Speedway was kind enough to store it for me for about a year. But when that ran out, well, so did my patience. I didn't have a place to keep it in Florida, and I didn't really have a use for it. So I sold it to a friend who also worked up at the Speedway. And Jim was going to take some of the rust under the doors and a few other places from it having been a daily driver and fully restore it. He got that partly done, and then he sold it off, and it went through a couple of owners, and it disappeared. So last winter, Wes Eisenshank with CarTech Books runs a Facebook page called Lost Muscle Cars. And Wes and I have a relationship, and he called me up and said, hey, how about that Z28 you used to have? Have you ever found it? I said, no. I would go on Barrett-Jackson. I'd give the last 6 digits of the serial number, say, hey, anybody know where this car is? I'd love to find it. Wes found it. Problem being, it was no longer the car I remembered. It was down near Cape Cod, Massachusetts. And its owner, who was about 3 owners removed from the fella I sold it to, had embarked on a campaign to turn it into a big block drag car. I'm going, that's not my car. He sent me a picture of the trim tag with my serial number on it. I go, no, this can't be my car. And then he sent the killer, a picture of the car that still had my fenders and nose piece on it, but otherwise it had been tubbed and roll caged and a big block in it. And I go, all right, that's my car. Well, it's not the car I remember, but it's a car that he really loves and has a lot of fun with. So kind of nice to know that it exists, but all the unique spotting cues of my car, like where I had installed the cassette player in the dash and an oil pressure gauge that it didn't come with, of course, all of those were gone. And we tried to find the original drivetrain so I could have it and put it in another Camaro, but it had been parted out and sold off. So I guess you can't go home again. But Wes had awakened a long-lost yearning in me for the car that I once dreamt of. So if I couldn't have my car back the way I remembered it, why not find one? And we did. This was on Bring a Trailer. It was owned by an enthusiast in Seekonk, Massachusetts, who had gone through 2 different restoration shops to get it all just the way he wanted it. It is a 1972, one of just 2,500 or so made for that year. Mulsanne blue, white stripes, just like mine. A black vinyl interior without a center console. I think most of them had one, but this did not have one from the factory. And all fully restored. So we bought it on BAT, brought it down to North Carolina, and found some things that we thought could be improved. The 72s had a little higher ride height than the earlier second gens. So we had Joey Gray at Joe's second generation Camaros in Arcadia, North Carolina, go through the car. That's all he works on are these, and primarily Z28s with an occasional SS. We're going to have a video on Joey's business and his shop up on the site here shortly. Joey went through the car, got the coil springs to sit properly in their buckets, lowered them with a set of 1970 springs, and just went through the car completely to try to make it the corner carver that I remembered, and did a fabulous job. What do you think? A lot of people love the 69s, but for me, these early second gens, they really ring the bell. This is the car that Chevy raced in the Trans Am series with Chaparral in 1970. 1970 to 73 Camaros come in 2 distinct flavors. Standard, like this car, and the Rally Sport option, which is available on any 1970 to 73 Camaro. When you get Rally Sport, this standard full-width bumper disappears. Instead, you have bumperettes that end right here. In the center, the whole grille is visible, and there is a rubber Endura covered metal piece that surrounds the grille and serves as the bumper. The parking light is no longer here. It moves right there, and it's round, looking like a European driving light or fog light. A lot of people love the Rally Sports. I like the standard bumper for two big reasons. One, this is how they race them in the Trans Am series, with the standard bumper. Two, and the why of number one, is that the Rally Sport version, depending on who you talk to, is anywhere from 20 to 100 pounds heavier than this, and the last thing that any Camaro needs is more weight right on the nose. Oh, and about that license plate, it came from the pace car at Stafford Motor Speedway, where I worked. When that car got traded in, well, promoter Ed Yarrington took one of the plates and I got the other. Kind of fun on here when I drove this up to North Wilkesboro for the Nascar All-Star race when Wilkesboro was revived in 2023. Well, that's the story of my Z28s, including this one. It's not the car I had, not exactly, but boy, it sure is fun. The engine really pulls. When you dip into that 4-barrel, it really wants to take off. It shifts smoothly, it carves corners. It's a great representation of the Camaro that I knew and loved. Now, what's your preference in Camaros? Let us know in the comments column, and we'll see you next time.